In this reality and Earth experience, this is my first physical life I've taken on as consciousness, but it led to a more harsh rejection of the false. They're just taking infinite light and they're projecting false light back on you, and that's how really they get souls to come back to the Earth. It's not just when you leave the body after this and they catch you back from the dark side of the moon. It's happening right now.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. My guest today goes by Raad Enlightenment. He's a psychic, an astrologer, a channel who works directly with what he calls the divine truth within. Through his channel, he guides people to remember that they are not the body, that they are consciousness wearing one, and that almost everything in culture around us is engineered to keep us asleep. He teaches people how to recognize the matrix they were born into and how to walk out of it. Welcome to the Reality Revolution, J. Raad.
Thank you so much.
For someone hearing your work for the first time, give us a little story of how you got into this.
Yeah, so in this reality and Earth experience, this is my first physical life I've taken on as consciousness, as a spirit
Hmm.
being. So for me, it always had a different essence coming into this life, a more of a subtle sensitivity to the ethereal realm and to the physical occurrences around me. So this didn't just lead to a more deep spiritual awakening, but it led to a more harsh rejection of the false. And when I say false, what I mean is really the projection system based from lower entities, lower species that thrive off of, fear, energy siphoning, really the way the old reality or the old earth, as we call it, was built. So that structure for me was seen in very, you could say, debilitating ways through a monitoring pattern with entities around me, specifically some, we could just say, reptilian built programs and individuals. And the pattern was seen through the commonality of the same individuals appearing in my life with different masks, the same trauma projection occurring from a child and into my teens and into my early 20s, when that's when the awakening really happened around 21 years old.
Wow, tell me about what happened when you finally awoke.
Yeah, I wasn't really given, I know this might come off a bit wrong, but I wasn't given much of a choice. Because and I know we have free will here, but I don't.
Hmm.
I believe free will is not what we think it is. It's
Hmm.
to an extent you have free will in certain moments, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. In certain moments where you can override the gestures that they've programmed you with and they've stuffed into the bottle that the consciousness is here living through, known as the body. So for me, when the awakening happened, there was a complete breaking off and a dissolution of the old system, of the old paradigm, of the old addictions, habits, identity, most of all, because as humans, the big troublemaker for us is the identity. One thing I say
Hmm.
in my videos on YouTube often is the word identity, to have an identity implies an I entity. So you start morphing your I am, which is the presence of the source, the spirit
Hmm.
energy, whatever we want to call it, right? It's not so fixed. When we become more ethereal, more light, it's not so fixed. So for me, the density was no longer able to take a hold of me. So the fight was becoming more intense. The fight against, you can say, the program. You can say the structure that society implemented on your behalf. You can
Hmm.
say the role that you were put into in such a rigid way. And that's really for me that worked in my favor. So what you're going to hear in this message, anything I speak, is really the more we start to adjust the consciousness and enhance our abilities, the more the entities will start to make noise because they're not going to be comfortable. They're losing their power over you. They're losing energy. And that's how they make their living. And that's how they sustain their existence. So for
Hmm.
me, the whole story of my awakening has been taking them on head on. And because I become so experienced with the fully enhanced third eye, which is really how my awakening happened around 21, it just completely pierced open. And there was an immense heat on a constant basis. And that is what really implemented me into my awakening, is constantly seeing the particles, constantly seeing through each dimension and sensing when there's something around me that most humans would not be aware of, because as we know, 99% of what we have around us we're not seeing with the physical eyes. So that's why we have to adjust and start using our spiritual eyes, start using our ethereal
Hmm.
perception as consciousness. And that's when we start to see a real turning over from body to spirit, from death to life, from time to timeless. And that's when you can start, as you like to say, shifting timelines and changing over
Right.
your reality.
When you talk about entities and negative entities, for people that maybe aren't aware, explain exactly what you mean by that.
Right. So an entity can take on many shapes, many forms, many faces. For me, what I've typically seen is a implemented approach from the reptilians using shadow entities, monitoring devices, and most of all, the mind projection system that they use to speak through these lower thoughts. When I say lower thoughts, I mean survival based reality, survival state, root chakra. You see, there's a reason, especially we can say in the US, but really around the world, but in the US, you see everything red. The companies where you'll get a quick fix for food on the street, everything, they're all branding red, red. The root chakra is red. And that's the lowest plane, your lowest chakra. And they want to hyperventilate you, to fixate you on that level. Because essentially, what that does is create an inner turbulence that you're always fighting against without realizing it. And we submit to it. And that means you get caught in the third dimension. You get caught only listening to that projection system because it solely exists in the third dimension. These things don't exist in the higher realms. They can't make it there. The texture and their purpose, the reason the source lets it exist is because it's really here to show us the polarity and the harsh aspect of duality for us to use it to motivate our transcendence and to see that you can't be that. So for me, a big part of also at 21, 22, 23, not just seeing through the illusion and having the veil drop and seeing entities and starting to learn how to work against these things, but to start to really drop the false identity, drop the false thoughts, and remain as consciousness, which is even allowing space to be here, allowing me to be aware of space, aware of the body. And I know for some that might seem foreign, but on the new earth, this is the common language, I assure you. In the next 3 to 7 years, this is how beings will start to speak with one another, more in terms of consciousness, spirit energy, astrology, true history of the earth, Atlantis, and not repeating their mistakes. And really, the commonality of as a society, as a species, what we have to transcend in terms of karma, in terms of the wrongdoing, the false identity. Because if everyone just dropped the costume and the false identity at once, then things are going to be flowing as one harmony. And that's where telepathy exists. That's where manifestation becomes much more enhanced, much more clear, much more connected. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
disconnect from one thing I like to say is I see it actually, I was shown this as a cord. So when you're plugging into the simulation, it's a two-way street. So it's going back to you what they're sending in regards to self-worth, priorities, obligations, and the favorite words of the reptilians, guilt and shame. All of
Guilt
these
and
things
shame.
they're sending, you're surrendering your essence in terms of their rules, their system. You're plugging into it and taking that to be yourself. That's the projection system. That's their line of communication, and that's where we see entity possession take place because it gets real messy down there. The things I've seen with clients, and when I pull off these entities, they start regaining psychic abilities, physical sensations, because the entities like to latch onto chakras, especially the throat chakra, heart chakra, the back, any part of the body where it's aligned with your past lives or your current life. Everything is here now at once, and they have a purpose to keep you low until you see that that's just a game. Then you want to transcend that lower part of the simulation and you unplug. Then you're going to start to notice they're going to get desperate. And that's what I've dealt with in my story and my experience is their desperation because when they start coming at you with a lot of anxiety or projections or things go wrong in your life all at once and things get so harsh and you have so much fear, that's not random. It's a calculated attack because you're right on the precipice, you're right on the verge. And not it's not just an attack. Really, in a more neutral way, it's a test because
Mm-hmm.
they're looking to test you to see when do you have the discernment to not click enter into that lower level of consciousness.
If somebody watching is sensing or suspecting that there are entities being attached or within their environment, what do you recommend they do to cleanse their environment and to remove those attachments?
Well, the first thing is to open your subtle senses. Because if you're not
Mm-hmm.
into your subtle self as consciousness, you're going to blend in with them. This is what I hear from Source through my channel as I get these words that, you know, earlier before we started, he gave me something to Source. whatever we want to say, creator, God, source,
Hmm.
higher consciousness, it gave me this phrase for us today: path of least resistance. I believe that's what a lot of the collective consciousness is really having to confront right now. But if we really look at that phrase, this will
Hmm.
also reveal the entities. Because if we're in less resistance and we're not conforming to the costume and to their projections, like I said a moment ago, we're
Hmm.
connecting the dots now, which is often what the source does with me and these talks. When you start to drop the costume, and the ground will become shaky. The projections, the mind, the ego will start to throw all sorts of things at you. I'm sure y'all have seen it, and I'm sure many are feeling time breaking down in a construct. Time is not moving in a very consistent way. It's very sporadic. It's very unreliable. That's because the construct system is starting to evaporate. Because each time a being unplugs, it's felt. So in
Hmm.
terms of entities, when you unplug from it and you start to, we know this as meditation, but true meditation is also what? To, as I've also heard you say in your videos, to enhance yourself to the more expanded panoramic self as the greater awareness of our one consciousness here. You can't separate consciousness, not in the way they want you to think. It's formless. It can go and play these roles, but in terms of its originality, we're one self. And that's where a group like Atlantis lived. They knew that. Now they went awry with their intentions. And that's
Hmm.
where entities took over the earth because things got really dark and humanity has had to go through a karmic cycle. Karmic retribution is taking place right now, though. So, to know in your space if you have entities, you have to drop the false identity because then you're going to feel when something is too agitating, too intense trying to pull you. That's not just an addiction. So you see, an entity can literally take the role of an addiction. An entity can take the role of anxiety, of anger. An entity can also just send you dark thoughts. They're not limited to just one or two entities. One thing I like to say in my videos is, the body is the vehicle for consciousness,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So in a vehicle, let's say, how many people can you fit in a vehicle? A bigger car, you can fit maybe what, 8 to 12, if not a bit more, if
Right.
you really were, if you're desperate. So let's
Hmm.
say most humans have about 4 to 10, if not a bit more, individuals in their vehicle. It's very normal. It's very normal because we've been mixed, we've been distorted, and they make a play on that distortion because your senses are down. And if your senses are down, if your awareness is not acute, if your awareness is not precise on who you are, then you're going to what? You're going to flip into the screen. You're going to flip too far. You're overextending yourself. That's one thing the source would tell me early in my awakening. It's an overextension. So when that's happening, you're dipping your face into the bubble of the illusion, and all these things as consciousness, you are consciousness, they start to just morph into you. And
Hmm.
you're taking on these patches, these identities, these clothes. You're putting on all this attire, all these roles, and you're trying to carry the world on your shoulders without realizing it, and you get drained. And that's also where we would know a walk-in to take place
Right.
because the soul has an assigned amount of time, and sometimes they have to step in a bit early. But this really has to do with levels of consciousness, and the soul can only take so much. Someone might say the soul is infinite, the energy is infinite. I say with the amount of time it gets tortured and having these projections on it and trauma and how many lives it's lived, it's got to at some time tap out and have someone else take its place. It's got to go rest. There's places in
Right.
other realms where the soul goes to literally take it easy for a while. That's just how rough we have it here. But
Right.
it's not meant to stay that way.
Well, the interesting aspect of this, when I have these discussions with my friends about these entities, when you become aware of them, is they a lot of times they're feeding on fear, and the worst thing that we can do is become overly fearful about these entities. So we have to be careful, I think, when we're talking about these entities. There may be people watching that suddenly are like they're afraid that there's something that they're um and so how can we address this without becoming overly fearful, which is the food they eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The best way to not have fear about it is to know how powerful you are, that they don't exist without you.
Hmm.
They don't exist without you because without your proof that you're here experiencing your story, your life movie, there's no entities, there's no trauma, there's no family, there's no obligations, there's no desire to have something in the world, there's no past lives, there's no spiritual beliefs. None of it exists without your true self.
Hmm.
And what is your true who is your true self, might I say? is the perceiver of all life. So you're aware of even your body sitting here, standing or sitting. You're aware of the simulation. There is no simulation without you. You're aware of when you disconnect from the simulation, very subtle, and you notice a new module. You notice that you start to become lighter, more ethereal. You're noticing very subtle things. So the way to get out of the trap, out of the demiurge, or out of the fear state, out of where the
Hmm.
entities are really pulling on beings, is to know your true self, because they can't touch that. They can only touch you if you believe you are merely a body mind. If you believe that you're that, you're in, they got you, fear will take you, and you're going to have to take time. But at some point, every being has to cross this road. Every being
Hmm.
has to turn over, whether it's now or in 10 lives for you. If you want to go into another planet, because for the most part, no one will be reincarnating into an Earth much longer, because things are falling. Things are falling. It's all falling away from where we're at right now. So the old
Hmm.
timelines are also starting to cease. So it's not going to be somewhere for someone to go reincarnate on lives from now, one life or two lives from now, to experience human life again in this way. So it's over. We're turning over now, and you're either with it, or you can take more lives and go into a different planet that's somewhat similar, hopefully not as harsh as the Earth. We have a lot of forgetfulness here.
Hmm.
You get what I'm
We do.
saying?
Even people
And
that are, even just for people that are alive a couple years ago, not necessarily forgetfulness of past lives, but a lot of forgetfulness.
we forget it. You know something else they told me the last few days to tell you about is,
Hmm.
specifically for us today, is there's a lot of things with manifestation and desires and things we wanted in life over the last, let's just say, few years of your life, whether you were awakening or not, that you
Hmm.
wanted and they came true, and you just didn't realize it, because there's so much. We only remember what the mind dictates. We only remember what that module of the lower self wants to remember. That's why we got
Hmm.
to click disengage, y'all. Because if we don't disengage from it, what's going to happen is you're lost in the mayhem, and you're susceptible to entities, and then you could say, "Oh, I'm afraid of this," or "It feels too much for me."
Hmm.
Because that me talking is not you, it's the system. It's years and decades, and to be honest, centuries for most souls of programming. So imagine carrying that for, let's say, 500 years, let's say 85 years. It, it takes a very specific flash of pure light, a very specific spark of engagement from the source consciousness to allow you to realize that your source code is how you don't be afraid of them, how you don't allow fear to override you. Because, the entities, yes, they make a play on fear for sure, but they also make an even bigger play on the false identity.
On the false identity.
That's why spirit made us here in this timeline in America with the English language so obvious. I can give you a few examples if you want today, but one, like I said earlier, identity. The I am, which is the presence of God, the presence of the source, the creator, is I am.
Hmm.
So that I, which is in the alphabet, the ninth letter, nine is the
Hmm.
divine, the end of the cycle, higher mind, higher intelligence. So that nine energy of the letter I am, that
Hmm.
pure essence, gets twisted into the entity realm, into the realm of entities, and you're being deceived constantly. So let's really allow ourselves to decipher what's going on here. Who are you? This is the question I don't want you to ask. Man, if someone goes and gets a job in the system, right? They're never going to be asked, who are you as an actual being? Who are you beyond this world? What do you sense your existence is about? They don't ask you these questions.
Right.
Why? Straight path, walk it, reincarnate, and get lost in a simulation. That's all they care about. What's your experience in our world? What did you learn from our false knowledge? Okay, they can see you're carrying the false identity. You're one of us. You accept your worth to be paid this much. Okay, we accept you. You're in. And then that's a life. So that's what they care about. They don't care about, well, what's your spiritual strength? How active are your psychic abilities? Who are you beyond here? What's your higher purpose, even? A more simple question, right? These
Hmm.
things rarely matter, especially the psychic part and the spiritual part, because it's not of that world. This is why, I'm not Christian. However, I'm speaking to you now from the same land Jesus walked on. I'm right next to Palestine here in Lebanon.
Hmm.
And Jesus had a saying, many things. He said, "My kingdom is not of this world." Well, that's the same thing we're talking about right now when they're only talking about third dimensional activities. That's you zipping up the costume and submitting yourself over to the simulation. The simulation cannot exist without you, as without us, without the consciousness, the totality of the source. So we want to invigorate the body, which is one of the things I also do in sessions. Activate these senses, drop the veil, then you're automatically opening your channel. We all have the ability to channel. They just
Mm-hmm.
took it. They took it because they closed it off. That's one of the things you surrender when you plug in that two-way street we talked about, the cord. You're sending over what? Your belief, your presence, which none of this exists without presence. If the source were to blink out for one moment, the presence would drop. There'd be no proof of our life here, no proof of this mystical
Mm-hmm.
conversation, no proof of any spiritual enhancement, evolution, life memories. It's all gone if the source disappears. We can
Mm-hmm.
agree on that metaphysically, right?
Right.
Even physically.
Of course.
So so that's how great you are. So that's my answer to your question about fear. If you realize that you are synonymous, that none of it exists without the consciousness, without the presence of your true self, where we are one, where telepathy is so automatic because we're not connecting from separation, we're not sending a wave far away. It's connected to the same essence. So it's more automatic that way. Well, that's when we start to activate what we had in the past, other civilizations. That's when we start to activate our timeless essence and we start to drop the limitations, and they won't be able to hold things over you. They won't be able to project thoughts on you as easy. And you're going to have more what? You're going to have more discernment, actual discipline, which is not merely just a physical thing, in my opinion. And I'm sure we could talk about this more now or another time. Actual discipline is to know how immeasurable and vast and imperative your presence is to this life. So discipline is to pull back a bit. Let's get you some of your space back because they've claimed so much of your space. And that's entity possession. That's entity interference. And that's where they start to really claim your name. And what they want to do is what? Drain your life force away until you reincarnate. That's their role. I've seen them. I've had them admit to me who they are. I've seen their patterns, most of all, the habits they want to insinuate on your behalf. But don't
Mm-hmm.
be afraid of them. They're just playing their part until you level up. So that's also something I want to make clear today about the fear part. And then just in general, we have to
Mm-hmm.
look at it with a bit more neutrality. At first, maybe you're going to feel a bit of agitation towards them, and that's normal. Feel it. But let's not get stuck there for a year. Let's not get stuck there for too much time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's let's see, okay, but it is just a part of myself. I heard you say something on your past interview that it's like someone in your family that took the wrong path, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's really interesting because yeah, they just made wrong decisions and they come from a place in their universe where they slipped into ours. They're not from here, by the way, these reptilians, and where they've been ruling over the lower side of this existence on the humans and the earth experience. Well, that system they set up is all built on what? Fear, anger, shame, comparison, ego. They want you in separation because you're weakened that way. So it was all set up that way, and you can just start to see all the little hints and signs through words, which I have many more if you want more, they're implemented into the English language. There's many signs in our daily life. We're talking normal human life in the world, in America, the way we live, the way we process life. Well, there's so many signs, and there's so many moments you're forgetting, and there's
Mm-hmm.
so many things like we said a moment ago that you wanted to come true and spirit gave it to you. Source will bring you that, but you don't realize it because the ego already moved on to 10 more projections because it's a never ending system. You see, they're running on infinite power because your power is infinite, so they're just taking infinite light and they're projecting false light back on you, and that's how really they get souls to come back to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Is It's not just when you leave the body after this and they catch you back from the dark side of the moon, whatever we want to call it, whatever experience you choose to see, whatever's happening, it's not just that. Particularly,
Mm-hmm.
it's happening day to day here, man. It's happening right now. When someone disengages from this focus and goes on their daily life, it might slip in and try and pull them into the because every day you come back here. You go dream and you come back here, right?
Right.
So you're switching sides constantly. I don't want this to be too scrambled or scattered for y'all. But if we look at the commonality, you'll really get it. The commonality is the consciousness is being distorted and being put into fragmentation and the costume. And the more you disengage from it, the more the entities will act up because it's really a war. It's an ancient spiritual war that's been going on for, the most part of 10,000 years
Mm-hmm.
in human terms. And, we're about to win because it just takes a few specific, a very particular amount of beings to unplug at a similar amount of time and a similar alignment, and things just start to really. switch over quick.
I get the impression, though, that in our full soul's awareness, that we know we're getting into this matrix. We're fully aware when we reincarnate, even though they're pulling us back. We're aware of the system and the nature, and also we design the matrix. The matrix serves a purpose. I don't want people to think that the matrix is this evil thing that we're caught in a prison, because I don't believe that. I really don't. Do you think that we're all caught in some evil prison and that we can't escape, or there's some level of choice? We're aware of this road that we have to overcome these entities and the nature of it.
So happy you said that. So yes, we're not stuck here. As
Mm-hmm.
long as you start to utilize what spirit is making known to you and you choose your higher path, you make the right decision. There is a such thing as bad and good. Anyone who denies it, I get worried about these kinds of things because, some false spirituality is out there. And obviously, there is bad and good to an
Mm-hmm.
extent through the play of life, through this life experience. And, you know, do they work through evil energy? Yes. But it's not fixed that way. You're not stuck there. You can literally elevate yourself into a higher dimensional experience within tonight. I'm telling you the
Mm-hmm.
truth. You can shift over from body to spirit within 8 hours, within even 1 hour, if you're diligent, if you're focused, if you're earnest, and you're seeing and you're seeking that you want something higher for your life. I'm
Right.
telling you from experience, and I'm telling you what I've witnessed through dozens and really over 100 beings that I work with. You have those moments where, even right now, is one of those moments for many beings where the veil is dropping and things are becoming more subtle, and you're sensing that there's more than just the body here. You're aware of your body. The body is being moved by your consciousness. So that's the truth. That's what we should focus on. You're not stuck there. It's not a trap. It's not a prison. It is in the third dimension, but you are not supposed to stay in the third dimension. We're not supposed to be there 10 years from now. You are actually supposed to, because what would be the point of leaving this planet very similar or the same way or worse than when we got here? There's no point.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could just click exit together, then you don't realize the amount of power we're taking back as consciousness. And that's what they're afraid of. So, yeah, is there a prison there? For sure, but you're not stuck there. It's a hologram. So, how could you be stuck in a hologram? It's, it's very, once you get space from it, you can see you can see how it's shallow. You can see how it's so superficial. And when you start to see it's superficial, then you realize something, as I'm telling you right now, giving you direct guidance on how to do this. If you see that the only way the superficial becomes real is if you believe you're a superficial individual with it, then
Mm-hmm.
that's entity possession. That's the third dimension. That's hell. Hell is not somewhere you go after this life. Heaven is not somewhere you just go after this life. We can create it here. And it's been created there, hell. We've experienced it, many of us, in different ways, and we see it especially through imagery. But a lot of that, it's just projections. It's a lot of projections that are going on every single day. You know, I see it even here in the Middle East. I see it, and I see the different programs that they got running with society. And you know what, man? It's just a test. It's a test.
Yes.
The Matrix tricks you. It's in the words. The Matrix tricks you. It's a trick. Fear is the bluff of the mind. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's not real. And I was gonna write you some today, but we'll just say it now to mention here is that what we have to do is realize every single thing that we have available within us, all of it, none of it can be pulled by them unless you let it be. You have to give the say so. So that's your free will. So, you know, are they manipulating reality? Yes, but they can't manipulate you unless you believe yourself to be the one who engages with them. So there's no them and me unless you're in separation. So the only reason I use a terminology like they and
Mm-hmm.
entities is because, well, they put us into such a scattered state. And when I say they, really right now, I mean a program moving through a simulation. It's
Okay.
not such a fixed, demonic entity. It plays that part, but it's imagery. It's imagery. It's projections of feelings. Your power to feel. One of the things I wanted to say today is the power to feel is
Mm-hmm.
more powerful than thinking. Thinking is secondary to you. Feeling is more organic. You feel, that's your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
That's your true inner being. And as a human, we have so many emotions and feelings available here, and we have the ability for what? Self introspection. I'm pretty sure that the other species on the planet, most of them don't have that. Humans
Hmm.
have that, and that's a very important thing to realize, that we have the ability to turn back the camera, turn back the lens we're looking through from the perspective of the source. When you get back, when you peel the layers,
Hmm.
right? You peel the layers, then you're just watching this life take place, and things become very light, very ethereal, very subtle, very open for a higher manifestation to take place. So that's where the entities can't hold you, because they can only hold you if you're so physical. That's when they can hold you.
Okay.
And I'm not saying the entities will like to put words in my mouth. It happens. I'm not saying that you're not a physical being. I'm saying I'm not saying disregard the body. I'm saying you're more than just your body. And that will actually enhance the body to integrate and embody a new earth timeline, to integrate your higher channel, your higher abilities to channel, your highest purpose, and to create heaven on earth. As we were mentioning earlier, that's the whole point of the new earth. And for me, I have no motivation here that's really worthwhile, that sticks, besides seeing that shifting of a planet. And I believe it's very feasible. It just takes a certain amount of beings.
To unplug from that it's unplugging. You do enter into another collective program. You're still plugged into a larger one, is my sense, but that you're unplugging from their lower level programs, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, Somebody asked a question: when an elderly person or a vulnerable loved one falls prey to these lower frequencies, their system can become locked in a perpetual loop of survival anxiety and fear. What do you suggest to handle such a situation?
Okay, this is what I've seen from my own experience
Hmm.
through very holy, mystical, esoteric, magical occurrences in my own life. I've experienced that contrast myself. And when you have someone around you, let's say it's someone actually you really love, or someone who's connected to you spiritually that you feel, but they're lost in the world, family, whatnot, right?
Hmm.
And this individual said perpetual, very, very highlighted word for me, perpetual. So
Perpetual.
it becomes perpetual, and that's really where we get caught in
Hmm.
an in between state. You're in between spaces. They get lost in something, right?
Hmm.
So, how do you help them? From my own experience, solidify yourself as more than just the body. Earlier, I was mentioning something, and I'll tell you even better now. And you've probably heard this before. You're not a physical being. You're a spiritual being having a physical experience. So when we
Hmm.
really start to look at the subtlety and the vastness of that phrase, you start to expand your consciousness. And as you expand, if these individuals in your life have a soul and they're not just a part of your life movie, it's not just, someone that's just appearing there. If they actually have soul energy, which is mixed, but definitely we have souls around us. We have beings who are close with us, who have that awareness, who have that presence that is reflected from our heart, from the being. So these individuals, you want to help them. The more you solidify and verify yourself as one with the source, as one with the giver of life, and as consciousness, they will follow in their
Hmm.
own ways. And if they're meant to go somewhere else after here, it will click within them on a subconscious level. It carries over, and it's playing a part maybe to prepare them for their next life.
Hmm.
So let us not become so so cynical about someone else, because that's also overextending ourselves. Focus on your own awakening, and then that will reflect into your reality. And if they're meant to match that and to carry with you to experience an uprising in their own state, they will. If not, you'll notice people disappearing from your life.
Hmm.
You'll notice people disappearing from your past story. All of us are dealing with that. Like I said about time earlier, becoming very in flux. You're also going to notice characters drop out of your life, whether it was family or not. The most important thing to realize is that true family is not of the flesh.
Ever so true. Another question. You've mentioned that when a person begins to refine their consciousness, the matrix often overplays its hand by rapidly throwing projections of doubt, judgment, and guilt to pull them back into a survival state. When someone catches the system doing this, what is the most effective way to immediately drop importance and neutralize that energetic magnet of negativity without falling into a secondary trap of fighting or resisting the projection?
So, how to drop the trap without fighting so much,
Right,
basically.
right. Yeah, yeah, basically.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So what I see from my perception is if your feet are so heavy and you're walking in the third dimension still, of course it's like you're anchored there and you're gonna slip down into the trap. We can call it hell, we can call it just the demiurge, whatever, where they're sending these urges and these fears, and it's constant what? Over, like you say in your videos, the nervous system, it gets
Hmm.
completely sporadic, it's overactive, it's really inverted because we're in an inverted reality, we're experiencing that. They use a lot, these lower entities use a lot of metaphysical knowledge. It's also not just in the words, it's in the music, it's in the rituals you see them doing out there, it's many things that they put in front of you. So these are traps really, because if you don't see the signs and step away from it a bit, then of
Hmm.
course you're going to be doing the same thing over and over again. And at a certain point, we have to have a refinement of the consciousness to where we don't make the same mistake. And that's really how you escape reincarnation. That's really how you escape, most of all, the daily trap, which, like I said earlier, is similar to reincarnation because we just keep doing it over and over again without realizing it. So, of
Hmm.
course, it's going to lead to a pattern of going and living another physical life where you have to learn the same lessons, right?
Hmm.
If you don't get it here and now. Because what? I'm sure you know this, it's only ever here and now. So right now, even as I say that, I feel things getting lighter. I feel the presence locking in with you a bit more now. Right. Over the last 30 minutes, I was a bit focusing on what I'm receiving, what I'm seeing from everyone tuning in right now, and what the consciousness is feeling. But right now, I'm focusing more directly on you. When you focus, time drops, the veil drops, and the traps fall away. Right now, they can't touch us. This is what I say with clients often, and it's 100% true. And even with clients, sometimes a thought will come up for them, and they don't flinch, they don't move, and I say send it away, and they wonder, whoa, how did you know that was happening? Because it's telepathy, it's active, because we're focused and enhancing as one consciousness, which is what they're so afraid of. But if we look at it more positive, you can say maybe they're rooting for you, maybe they want you to level up. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to always be so negative. You can change the narrative anytime you want. You can rewrite it how you want. My point is to stop living that lower script that they projected on you as their role, as the part of the play that they're playing. Stop living it out. You know, and that's not saying your whole life is going to change instantly. For some beings it's gradual. It's in parts. And even right now the presence we're sending, the presence we're focusing on, right? Your greatest powers are what? Your focus, your belief, your attention.
Hmm.
And that's why there's the another thing I've heard you say, I believe, is the swiping, the swiping,
Hmm.
the swiping on the phone. And one thing I see, maybe you'll like this. About a year ago, it came through as a download. When we're swiping, what are we doing?
We're making a choice.
Yes, but we're
Hmm.
also externalizing the energy and shooting it out there because it's up. You're not swiping
It's
side
true.
down. It's not going to you only. You're taking
Hmm.
your energy and putting it out there and you're touching that reality and affirming more what? Loop? Simulation?
Right.
That's why on Instagram it's called a reel because they're reeling you in.
Right.
There you go,
I
man.
one thing, one phenomenon I've noticed after raising my consciousness and focusing on meditation for myself is I've reached a point where entities are afraid of me. They know that they're going to get into my environment. They're going to be transmuted. I'm a transmuter. So, that generally they're going to stay away from me, or if they get within my orbit, it's like a black hole. They're going to get changed back. And so some of these entities are me. I can feel a connection to them, but at the same time, they're stuck in their own loops, right? And if they get within my realm, they're afraid. They know, they're aware. They don't want to get too close to my to vicinity because they'll be changed and transmuted. I sometimes feel like that is one of my roles is to be the transmuter. Have you ever? Does that? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. It's one of it actually ties into the question you last had from someone in the audience
Mm-hmm.
when about the trap. When we start to have such active transmutation taking place, and as you said, like a black hole or like just something that completely reverses their process, you negate it and then you send them back. You send them packing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when that's happening, they take on a different definition. They don't make you take on such a defined role. They don't pull you in because what they want to do is what? Morph to siphon. Morph to siphon, like I said
Mm-hmm.
earlier. So you're not letting that happen. So, someone like you, someone like myself, I consider myself, and in your case, what you're talking about, I become a conduit of truth. I become the conduit of this awakening. And that's an automatic transmutation because everything that comes through, if it's not of the truth, it will be dealt with in a swift and direct manner because we don't have time to delay because we've already made the choice. My choice is the truth. My choice is to take all of us to the new earth, everyone who's willing to just drop the filter, looking through a lens, drop the filter, get some space back, breathe, reclaim your essence, and realize how valuable you are. They wanted to make you a commodity because you are to them. But at a certain point, it becomes very minimal, their role. They start to mimic, they start to
Hmm.
play out the same attempts on your being. But once you see their pattern and that they only have so many tricks they can put on you, they're very clever with the things they do, but the source, the infinite intelligence, is more wise. However clever and quick they are, the source is more immediate and wise because the source is instant. It's now. It's here and now. They are then and there. if we're going to talk they still, which we can for now, it's the role of separation, the play. If there's a they and them, then there's a then and there. But the source is here and now. It's a different language. It's a different context. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So that's
No,
transmutation because they can't merge into the here and now. They're always taking you into past and future. Does that make
right.
sense? So
Absolutely.
that's the scattering effect. But the source, it can be scattered so much, but then it can also live a holistic life and be more whole as one totality, as one presence, and that's when we start to see the body.
Hmm.
We start to see something's moving this body here. Is that myself or is that the source? I say both. It's the greater intelligence, the life force energy that, and we should give gratitude for that every single day or as much as you can. At least, if not only gratitude, awareness back to the fact that you are much more subtle and there's something here giving you life. You're not, you're not the maker of your physical life. Something brought you here and something will take you from here when the time is right. When you're supposed to shift into another reality. And it's best that you give yourself to that because eventually you'll have to come back to this truth. So you might as well do it now.
So you can help us to navigate. You live in Lebanon. A lot of people in the United States, that seems distant, like another story or another movie. But you're waking up to bombs that are being dropped and a world that's in crisis. So it's easy to look outside of your window and see that we're losing hope. And at the same time, you're calling for a new Earth. So how do we look out and see what looks like, it's just ongoing wars, conflict, and at any time a drone could hit, right next to my house and blow up. And how can we look at that and say, oh, we're entering into some kind of new Earth? The Matrix is telling us that that's not the case. That it's a hell outside. So how do
Mhm.
you navigate that?
Navigate inward, not outward.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, we have this phrase when we're first waking up, you hear someone say, you have to go within. Everything you need is already within you. And for some people, that might seem very vague or cringe. And for me, it was a bit of both for a while, to be honest. But if you really start to look at it and you remove the layers and drop the veil,
Hmm.
and you can have the awareness of when an entity is trying to pull you into something, basic
Hmm.
metaphysics, and you start to know your true self again, which is more ethereal and detached. Then even as I said that, I must make you aware, full disclosure, when I said full detached, I felt something pull back more into the viewer, into the perceiver of this life experience, into the source. Now, if we start to have those moments occur and you connect with it and you also allow that into your existence, then
Hmm.
that's going to bring us into more oneness. It's going to make time slip away in a good way, where the clock doesn't control your life. And to navigate out of the hell, out of the projections, as your question was, well, I've got it around me every single day here. The things I see in this part of the world are quite scary in terms of the state of consciousness. And that has to do with the energy dome that was put over Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, also Iraq. It's there in Iraq, it's there in Syria and Lebanon. Here I am, Palestine. These parts of the Middle East specifically. The
Hmm.
other parts on the other side where they have, more success and they're interconnected in other ways with other parts of the world, it's different. But
Hmm.
here, it's real rough, it's real tough, it's real gruff. They
Hmm.
are very insistent on being an ego identity, anger, project. For them, yelling is normal, but it's not their fault.
Normal.
It's not their
Yeah.
fault. This is a part of the collaboration with we can use the word demons for now in a loose way, with the dark energy that's been placed here for so long. And I believe, I wanted to tell you today, I don't know if you've ever looked into what a Neanderthal is.
Oh, yes.
This is where they were rooted. A lot of them were actually they were here on this land, not only here, but they had things going on here on this land in the Middle East. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with that?
Tell me more.
So these are the after effects, what we're seeing now of the war, the karma, the anger, the distribution of the ego, the agitation, the aggression, the violence when they speak. I hear things here, I'm from Texas in the physical. So I'm not used to this. Like, it's very different where we're from in the West. Things are more, you can say, a bit more calculated in a more calm way, a bit more efficient, a bit more calm most of the time, much more calm, honestly. So here it's not like that. Here they yell, they scream, they point the finger, they fight. It's like a war within a war within a war constantly here. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because that's left over from that timeline of these other, you could just say, kind of animalistic creatures that existed that had a much more harsh nature, and the things that happened with humans and the inner battle that took place. A lot of dark things happened. And also what happened with Atlantis, it affected the whole planet. And one thing I really want to mention here, what happened with Jesus, whether you believe in the religion or not. I am not religious. I don't believe in a religion. However, I know that each religion, most of them, were based upon a truth of a being who experienced an awakening, like Buddha, like Jesus, right? So
Hmm.
what happened to him, he was speaking the same things we're speaking now, the same concepts
Yeah.
going beyond the body. He spoke in a parable often. He spoke with an analogy often for many reasons. Um, but you could feel the presence of you around him. Anyway, that scared the demiurge, the matrix. It reacted in a harsh way. But that was his story he agreed to. He knew how he would die his entire life. Anyway, the reason we're talking about Jesus here is because the same harsh effects from the karma of what was done to an innocent man of God, an innocent being,
Hmm.
it's still an overlay effect here on this land, and you see it play out. You can see it over there in America from news, from things, and I feel it here every single day when I walk out there. When, even where I am now, I'm transmuting energy. They have the phrase a grid worker, and
Right.
in a way, I am doing that here for the most of the past 3 years, and you know. It's a transmutation to uplift as many that are willing to make the shift in their own world, because I believe there are millions and billions of worlds,
Hmm.
and I believe that there are not, your world is not full of so many active source beings. You have to merge with them, converge. As you convert yourself back into spirit, you start to, as we're having right now, this conscious interaction, you start to make these links. And these
Hmm.
things have an effect on others and on us right now, and who knows what else in the future. It does things in this life. So when you're here and you're making differences in your reality, it's going to affect someone, sending signals to them in ways you wouldn't realize. So that's what's happening here in the Middle East. So the answer to your question, I turn back to the question, how do you overcome these projections of hell? How do you overcome the dark news and a lot of the things you might feel on a subconscious level and pull
Hmm.
you into doubt and fear, resistance?
Hmm.
Well, the same commonality we've been talking all the time is what, don't walk with heavy feet. But I would say now in this question, don't think about it as the heavy ego, because
Yeah.
all of that's heavy. It's the most heavy experience I had in my whole life. Where I grew up in America, a lot of dark trauma, malicious entities. The things I told you happened that led to my awakening. I was a bit vague, but the things that I've dealt with were very harsh, very calculated attacks. But that was to make me have to awaken.
Hmm.
So even there, though, the things I dealt with was not even 50% as heavy as the things that go on here with the way that they live here, and that's because of karma. It's because of the role it has to play. But I also believe there are portals here that certain people want access to, about with the land. And there are access points to inside of the earth, other things that exist here. And most of all, portals, ethereal portals that help us shift, that change the collective consciousness. And they want to control it, but you can actually evade that by taking your power back, and you control your perception by merging into the source, by
Hmm.
allowing yourself to not look at it as just a mere prop on the stage of life, but being aware of the body and aware of the stage of life, and the veil starts to drop as you ask the right questions, as you learn to see what is really permeating within your being. Is there's that constant evolution waiting to take place. There's that one moment where you peak leads to another. And maybe you come down for a while. Don't worry about it. You're going to go back up stronger because it's preparing you. They have that phrase, there's always quiet before the storm, right?
Hmm.
So I would say before you're going to have so much abundance or so many great things happening, or even just so much spaciousness and freedom and peace, you live in trust and you build up to it and you start to crack the code. You start to see the commonality. That's where we start to talk about simulation, because simulation into simulated reality is what? Living in that perpetual
Hmm.
loop, never asking the right questions and always being the false self. So the way out of that hell is don't be the false self. It can only
Yeah.
affect you if you're the false self, because that one was literally made to live in hell. The ego, the third dimensional self, the old identity, the one who has the obligations, the guilt, the shame, all reptilian inventions, by the way, the one who carries these things, that one was made to exist in hell. Okay, y'all? It was literally coded that way. But the coding, the source is not one sided in that way. There's a great balance. And you start to go back this way now. It turned that way. It went that way so much. And now it has to come back. The
Right.
source is holding it. And it went that way so much. And now is bring your awareness back. And that's going to help it in a more timely fashion. Step out of time, step out of the body, and allow yourself to kind of drift into a more harmonious life. Now, someone might ask me, and maybe you will in a minute, this is not rational. How do you integrate it? That doesn't make sense for our day to day life. But you're asking the wrong questions. That what that is doing is thinking in the same program. So it's like you're trying to use a tool that doesn't do the job.
Right. Anita asks, what are the signs that someone has an entity attached and the steps to remove it? How to protect yourself so it doesn't come back?
So the signs we would look for. Okay, if you see someone around you or yourself, I don't want to rule yourself out, because if we just externalize it and make it only about others,
Right.
we're overlooking the most potent and important part here. So in yourself and others, we're going to make it about both. You're going to see quick snaps of anger. You're going to see constant changes. You're going to see projections of shame. You're going to see projections of doubt.
Hmm.
You're going to see them constantly changing their mind. You're going to see them blaming you constantly.
Hmm.
All of and I know that seems like, well, this is very typical stuff in life. But yeah, what did I tell you earlier? 8 to 12, y'all. There could be 8 to 12 people in the car with you.
Hmm.
And the thing is, the people in your space are also kind of in your like in the vehicle, because you're not just this body, your true vehicle of consciousness. The body is a vehicle of consciousness. But even more true than that is the space is appearing within the great self, and they're here with you. So it's all interconnected and it's also close to you, which is
Hmm.
why energetic cleanliness, efficiency, spiritual practice, but most of all, detachment is so important. So you're going to see these signs where they want to pull you into you being attached to something. It's an urge. That's why we have the phrase demiurge, because it's the demonic urge. It's to literally pull you into some sort of irritation, to pull you into some sort of attachment and aggravation. So you're going to see them act up, project things on you. Um, I'll give you a little thing
Hmm.
that you probably won't hear someone else say. If you see it, I don't know how people are going to feel about this, but this is just my perspective, and I've seen it, and I've seen it enough to know. If you see someone scratching their face a lot when they're resting, there's an entity in them. There's
Really?
an actual yes. If you see someone when they're resting a lot doing this or turning a lot, that's not just restless. Why are they restless? The body should be at perfect peace. The nervous system is being thrown off. The consciousness is being distorted in a very heavy way because they're carrying some that's not them. So we're supposed to be very organic and in harmony and in a symphony with the universe, but the entities don't work that way. They work in what? Emphasizing individuality, emphasizing a harsh separation, thickening the veil to make the veil thick so you have so much forgetfulness and you get caught up in the physical desire, physical preferences, pleasure, all these. physical things because that's where they exist and they want you to only exist there. So you'll see them scratching their face, you'll see them moving a lot, and when they're resting. That's because when they're resting, the entity's ready to get back to work. And it might be doing things to them in their dreams. The dreams, a lot of things happen. I'm sure you know this in your own experience that they send things, test signals, traps, entities that can project things in dreams. The more strong you become, the less it will seem to drain you and pull you or distort you. But it's like a muscle, the awakening, the consciousness, the true spirituality. You're strengthening a muscle. So you have to learn to spot these entities. And you'll also see them. You see, the thing is, I want to tell you this, man, all
Hmm.
of y'all, that they know your weaknesses, they know your habits and something that they can tempt you with, the temptation, because they're the ones that put it there. They've been with you your whole life, isn't it?
Hmm.
So if they've
Right.
been with you side by side and they put it there, the coding, the programs, they're intertwined with it. So if they're intertwined with it, they know when they can sense when you're pulling away from them. So they know when to, like a whip, and they try and pull you back. Does that make
Right.
sense?
It makes sense. Can I not just say, you're not invited? You can leave now. Please leave now. You are this incredibly powerful entity. Sometimes we make it complicated. Can we just declare right now, this is for me, and any entities that are dark, I ask to leave now. Can you do that, or do they don't care? Tell me what happens when you do that.
It works,
It works.
but it's not the most efficient thing to do because that's only a quick fix.
Okay. They'll come back, is what you're saying.
They'll come back. I have seen beings I've worked with reach that like a essence where they're so immeasurable and powerful and gaining psychic abilities, gaining physical senses back, feeling free. The entities were pulled off of them by me and the source and everything's working for them. But then I can sense through the telepathic connection and through them disappearing or something within a day, within a week. Not everyone, but maybe half of the people I've worked with,
Hmm.
they go fully back into that the mask, and they go into character. So you just saying I'm sovereign, you can't touch me, it's not going to do it. In the
Right.
moment, it definitely could do.
In the
It can
moment.
help, but if it's not upheld by a greater seeing and a greater awakening, then that's they laugh at it.
Right.
So you have to have both. You
Yeah.
have to have both. You have to have that willpower to say that and to feel it, the awareness of it, but then the real spiritual work, which is what? Cleansing out the false identity. So the I doesn't go into an I entity and you start morphing.
Right.
Because we're very fluid. Consciousness is very fluid. And so many, water can take the shape of wherever it goes into. If we pour it into a bottle, it took that shape. A glass, it took that shape,
Hmm.
right? Poured into a pool, it took that shape. A river, it took that shape. The ocean, it took that shape. Now you're more like the ocean, very vast. But when an entity takes charge, it wants to put you in whatever shape it wants, and it interlocks with you with your interest and your habitual status of falling into the old patterns. So unless you're sharp about disengaging from that, then what you just said, it has no relevance almost at all. But if
Mm.
you're sharp about your discernment and your detachment and increasing your real power, an actual spiritual awakening, then yes, that works great. They go hand in hand. You see, but if you're just holding up one, the other's going to pull you down. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So you got to be able to allow spirit through you to go back into oneness. You see, the new earth is all about oneness. There will be no separation. If there's separation, it's looked at as a joke. Like it's very light. We laugh about it. Here on the old earth, it's built with such what? Rigidity. It's very rigid. It's very harsh, very
Hmm.
dense. They say the earth is the most dense planet that exists. I have to agree with that. Um, but you know what else? In contrast to that, to give you some good news, I want to make this balance today. We have by saying it's not about fear, but also it's the most dense planet and it's not going to stay that way. The opposite of density is what? Your ethereal, spacious self. So you are even aware of space. Space isn't watching you saying that's the human. You are through this human vessel looking up at the sky and seeing the stars and space. And you can feel space around you. You can say, this meditation made me gather more space, or this talk today made me feel more open, more spacious, more broad, more
Hmm.
powerful. You're aware of these very subtle things, some things they don't have words for, by the way. And they say to tie back together with what I said about the Earth being the most dense planet, they say space is the most subtle element.
No.
So if space is the most subtle element and you are aware of it, then who are you? If you're the one seeing space, just like you're the one seeing the simulation activate and disengage. It's very subtle turning over, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you in your experience you felt that oscillation, and we
Hmm.
all go through it. It's very normal. I want to normalize a lot of things with y'all because we look at it as so. What's that phrase they have? Pseudoscience. We look at it as like, and we also can't just look at it from science because that's only rational based, rational mind based in that program. We have to start to look at things from a more spiritual perspective of truth and knowing that the old way never worked because we were constantly stuck. And you're going to oscillate. But when you come back here to your more spacious self, focus and expand it and make the most of each second. Even before a second happens, you're here.
Right.
You're aware of seconds. You're aware of the frames changing. That's not just that's not just life. That's the screen of consciousness taking place where life is even felt. And that's where the body shows up. That's where awakening takes place, and that's where we're going to have our transition from the old earth to the new earth. It's going to take place through that perception, through that increase of perception.
Right. You channel something you call the divine truth within. Is that correct? You channel something called the divine truth within. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, I would say to you, 75% of what I've said to you today has been channeled through the source.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, and I know you've seen it before where you've spoken with someone where they are channeling both in the moment, they're here, and something is working through them. It doesn't just have to be a full trance. It's open. Channeling can be for the individual, whatever they feel. So for me, it was that integration back out of the realm of trauma, out of separation, out of the darkness, really, and more into the more ethereal effects of the presence of the source. So my channel, when I told you earlier that this was fully enhanced and fully activated, the third eye, we're talking about like a whole being was living here, fully on
Hmm.
fire for over a year, 2, 3 years, constantly active, and I could turn it on at my own on my own volition. And this was the source also engaging that. But you know what? The most two connected chakras that we work with are what?
Third eye and the heart, or in the crown. Okay.
They're the closest.
Hmm.
I'm talking in distance.
Oh,
The
and distance.
closest.
Right.
They're literally, you know what? They're like the same chakra. But we calculate
Sometimes
this
it
way, third
feels
eye,
like
and
that.
this
Yeah.
when you're channeling, it becomes it for me when I'm channeling, this gets more engaged. Even right now, I feel like something swirling here. I feel something
Hmm.
opening because I'm putting more focus on it. I just felt the body get more heat, and I often get very hot when I channel. And right now, I'm gonna let in more messages for whatever time we have left here that come through whatever the source wants to say with full clarity. But majority of what has been said today was with full clarity and with the full giving of the higher intuition that's available here as our totality being, which is the source. We're when they say, like, you hear someone who's lost an ego in the world but they have power, let's say they have power spiritually but they're lost, they'll say I'm a god.
Hmm.
Now to an extent it's very true, but the problem is they get distorted with ego, they get distorted with the darker side of the play. The truth is I am one with the source. I am an extension of that. I am an extension of the source. And this is the greatest part of your life, is when you have that true noticing that you're no different from the subtlety of the original manifested presence. And even as I said that, I felt things start to collapse. Anything dense that was around us, any shapes, any construct, any entities, which they're not really able to touch us right now, but they can watch. That's what we know as a monitoring spirit.
Hmm.
And what I really want you to understand is, you know, when you turn back into this, and as I do when I channel, when I work with a client, it's 100% channeled. It's not 80 or 90. It's 100%
Right. Right.
channeling where the source wants to happen. And when I'm talking like this, it's usually going to vary from 75 to 100. And right now, I'd say I'm more at like 90 than
Hmm.
a little bit higher than earlier. What that means is you have a more pristine focus and on letting things flow through. Like right now, I know the source is moving my body, as an example.
Right.
And I want you to understand these things are going to be so normal in the next 3 to 7 years. As long as you follow a higher timeline, as long as you follow your awakening and you give yourself to this, then it's going to reward you. And maybe you'll be tested. You'll have a few moments where things seem dire, but those are just little moments in your life experience. And that's to see what's more important to you. Do you prioritize playing that role and following the old program, or do you let something more powerful, more full of abundance, but most of all, more full of infinite knowing come through to your being, to your embodiment? And that's where we see merging into truth. And that's where we open our channel. And everyone's a channel. Everyone should be channeling, but the problem is the entity is speaking through them and their channel is negated. And it's like they're just being what? Held hostage.
Right.
Right. And you can see it in many ways. I can offer you certain ways to be able to actually detect it more clearly. As you asked earlier, how do you know? Well, another thing you can do is you can ask them straight up. They hate it. They hate it when you do that, an entity. If you ask them straight up, is there something in you talking through you right now? Or who do you work for? Where do you come from? This doesn't seem like your actual self. You should cleanse your energy. They will spiral. They will get very angry because that's not normal for them, right? For them, fear, projection, separation, guilt, blame, shame, for their species, for this group of entities. Right. It's
Mhm.
very normal, those words. But what we're talking about here is abnormal for them. So the reason we reject it, at some point we have that awakening where we reject the old way, the fear, the projections, the trauma, the things we've held on to, is because it's not our nature. For them, it's their nature. They're never going to reject it, okay? But for
Mhm.
us, it's not our nature. You're not existing to only be that, or else we would never ask the questions and we wouldn't have those moments of the veil dropping and higher awakening and visions and receiving a higher transmission like this. And you'd be surprised how much one moment of focus, with due diligence, with openness, one of your greatest assets is when you're open. By the way, open expand your awareness, and you don't reject. Then you allow yourself, like you said earlier, to transmute anything that's holding you back. And as that happens, you have so much freedom being integrated into your space. And whether you feel it today or a year from now or a month from now, it will be felt and it will be integrated, and you will make that shift. And these little moments make a difference because they start to become big moments.
Right. So 3 to 7 years is the time frame you've given us a couple times. That's when you see the big shift happening.
I see by 2030 a full utilization of spirit through the human experience. It's a big statement. I've never said that before. But yeah, by 2030, I see a full utilization of spirit in the human experience.
So excited then.
And I
Yeah.
know it's the truth because I said it twice with some separation, and my memory doesn't work that way. So that's how I know it's coming from the source, because I'll forget it. So yeah, by 2030, we're going to see a dropping of the importance of currency. We're going to see a dropping of the separation. We're going to see the veil dropping in so many different ways. We're going to see before then species make themselves known, obviously, or by then. It just depends on this can alternate. It could be 2028, it could be 2032. I'm giving a compromise. I'm giving a middle ground approach. That's what I see.
Right.
And if we stay balanced and enough beings make this shift, then it's approximately 2030. And by 2035, there will be nothing like the old Earth. It won't be in the same format. You're going to see everything change. Everything changed, the way we view life, the way we view each other, because it's those few source beings that take back power that turns into 10, that turns into 30, that turns into 100. And you start having this community. You start having this recognition in one another, and it spreads like a wildfire. That's
Oh,
how
I
the
see.
new earth is that's how the new earth is built, because the wildfire, what is it burning? The old programming, the old paradigm, the old ego. Burn
Hmm.
it into costume, surrender it, because it's not going to serve you, it serves them. It's not going to help you, it keeps you in it. They, me, and them, and that's the entity system. So we disengage from that simulation, and you'd be surprised, because even as I said that right now, I felt my state become 30% lighter. So I'm completely just like ethereal right now,
It
and
feels
that's
true to
that's
me.
our that
Yeah.
that's our goal. Our
Hmm.
goal is to be in this state in a sustainable manner for every moment of your life.
Every moment.
I don't want you to have to keep switching back. It's painful, but it's good you feel that pain, because what do you think the butterfly feels when it's going out of the cocoon? What do you think it's feeling? It's that's what you're going through in that oscillation, y'all. And I'll tell you something. Yeah, a butterfly is very accurate to what you are supposed to be, because you're supposed to expand freely, and they keep you constricted, and they made a human so limited, but your abilities are so you'd be surprised how much you have available. And that's why they surround you with everything, these images, because they got to try everything they can. And I almost guarantee you 80% of this audience, if not more, it hasn't approached them too much during this discussion because the focus is more potent each 10 minutes. I don't know if you've noticed, but each 10 minutes
Yeah.
in intervals,
Mm,
like right now, we're much more locked in as presence than we were 30 minutes ago.
very true.
And that's how spirit works. It works in the way that you're ready for. So I'm certain that no one has had these entities approach them in such harsh ways to and it's worked. It hasn't worked because this is more powerful. So it might approach you in an hour. It might approach you tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. It might approach you in your dreams tonight, but it ain't gonna approach you now because you're too solidified in this reflection of presence. So it can't because the light is too strong. But notice on your balcony or on the porch, got this
Hmm.
light. And the bugs, they like to go to it, right? The bugs like to fly around it.
They
The
true.
same thing with the entities and astral parasite, that the devices they implant there. I've seen plenty of the monitoring devices that actually, there's negative ones that manipulate you, and there's positive ones that help balance your ethereal abilities and activate you. And that's the balance. And there aren't just entities, there's also what? An angel. Everyone has a guardian angel typically. And
Hmm.
each angel has its aspect to play. So it's balanced, right? And you got to choose to focus on accepting the harmony of that one consciousness where these higher beings operate. You see, I see it all the time in the sky here. I'm seeing these I'm seeing these ships for
Right.
3 years here in the Middle East. I'm seeing these things moving through the sky. I've seen things that you wouldn't even be able to understand.
I can
Like such
imagine.
a it's hard to explain. Like it's just reality breaks, and it's just like the sky breaks open almost, and like light just completely shifts and it goes away. And that's showing us, you could say, a glitch in the simulation, but it's also showing us a sign that something else is around us. And those little things, 20 years ago, or even let's say 14 years ago, 2012, when the world ended as we knew it and we shifted timelines and we started making this awakening and gradually. It was true what they said about 2012, by the way.
It was.
And then 2020, we know what happened, and it made everyone go inward. You had to
Hmm.
confront that darkness even more. And we know the last few years what's happening now. It's starting to speed up in different ways than we would have ever known. But if we go back to 2011 or 2012, no one would have believed the things we're saying now. It would have been much more hard to get these concepts out there. Even yourself, it would have been harder to let it come through. Channeling things would have been more difficult. Why? We were much more interlocked with the third dimension. The simulation had much more of a hold of our soul, of our spirit, of our energy, of our consciousness. And now it doesn't carry the same validity. It takes you to validate it now because you know the difference in yourself and the ego, yourself and the simulation, or at least you're starting to. And that starting to is something that maybe 10 to 20 years ago wouldn't have been possible. You see what I'm saying? So like the things we're talking about, it's much more special and powerful than you realize because we've had to make a space for it. They can't throw too much at you at once in terms of your awakening. Everyone has their assigned, their agreed upon awakening, their timeline, and I do believe this activation today, which is what it was. It's what it is an activation.
It was an
It's not
activation.
just it's not just timeless. It carries the particles and the coding and the focus to enhance someone's consciousness to actually go out of the body. And there's one thing I want to address here is there's this narrative about OBE, NDE
Hmm.
that's been overplayed a bit in our spiritual experience. I'm not saying they're not real, but we have to go beyond just one experience, near death experience, out of body experience. Because if you just get caught in stories and experiences, we're going to stay there for a while. And the simulation can make a play on that. They like
Hmm.
repetition. They like when you're just a listener and hearing stories and it goes into the mind. But you're
Right.
not your mind. The mind has no fixed location. It's these aspects of yourself. You have to learn to utilize them. And an OBE, the true version for me would be to sustain being out of your body and letting the body be utilized to where it's clear there's no entities messing with you, and you're actually the body will then boost you as a magical device into the timeline.
Right. I
So
love it.
let's not just make it one temporary experience story, make it your totality story that you sustain, right? Because
Very true.
that's the point. I don't want us to get caught in just stories. That's my point. Don't get caught in just the stories. Get really caught as your true self, as the awareness of the body, as the space, the awareness of this video, this discussion. Um, you know, if we could just start to look at our body differently, this is already the new earth coming into fruition. Because the body is your key to freedom. I
Mm-hmm.
swear it. Because God, the source, I don't know which phrase you prefer. Maybe you prefer neither. You're open. Some people get freaked out by the word God,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all the same anyway. The source, we're just going to use that. The source gave you this body as a key to open your gateway to heaven, to open the gate to heaven, to engage into the north. It's a key, and you can use it to your advantage and stop letting them use it to serve their system, to siphon energy out of it. It's it's a portal. Each chakra is a vortex.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we have time for a story, but I had something happen at 21 when the awakening happened. This is what made it spark in the physical with the sun. Something happened with my physical body, my eyes, and the sun, and it had a whole negative effect on the health, but it
Mm-hmm.
activated something. And I'll tell you something, the stars, the sun, which is a star, all these aspects, they're portals into other existences, each existence. And your chakras are very similar in particular ways. It's portals of energy, and we have to interconnect them. It's color coded. And even as I'm saying that, I feel it flowing now because we're bringing a focus to it. Same thing with the cells, right? So yeah, I've had my own experience with the sun
Wow.
and the chakras. The chakras are very much so connected with that starlight energy. And that's why entities will typically latch on. I've seen many beings that just they get onto the throat, they're hanging around it, the back of the neck or the spine. The thing
Mm-hmm.
about the spine is all the chakras are aligned on it, right? And they follow a certain way. And they like to also get on the spine because they can have different effects on each chakra. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to start to activate these parts of your energy body because that's really what you are. You have the energy body, then the physical body, and we want to kind of mutate it into one.
Love it. Thank you for bringing your wisdom. It's been a real honor to speak with you. People that want to connect with you, they can go to jradenlightenment.com. Is that correct? What's the
Uh, just on YouTube, Rad Enlightenment on
Rad
YouTube.
Enlight RAAD
Yeah,
Enlightenment?
Rad Enlightenment.
All right, and I'll make sure to put a link in the description so people can connect, and you have sometimes you have some virtual events, and people can reach you, and you can help them specifically with whatever they're going through. And it was a real honor to talk to you. Keep bringing the new earth to the where you're at. Thank you for doing the work that you're at. I know that that there's a lot of darkness there. Thank you for bringing the light. And we do appreciate it. We as this community appreciate it. And let's talk again soon. All right, brother.
I'd love to
Welcome,
talk again with you.
welcome to the Reality Revolution.
I'm so happy to hear that. It's such a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you go, I have something special to share. On November 20th through the 22nd, I am hosting a 3-day live in-person event at the Hilton Sedona Resort at Bell Rock in the Vortex. 3 full days of immersive transformation in one of the most powerful energy centers on the planet. Pineal gland activations, quantum jumping, higher self connection, future self merging, bliss body, wealth consciousness, large sums of money flowing, retro causal influence, a technique based on real quantum physics that your future self is already using to bring you here. The vortex amplifies everything. The earth becomes your co-creator. This is something a recording or a single meditation cannot replicate. Tickets are in the description. The space is very limited. I am keeping this intimate because of the power of this location. Sedona, Bell Rock, November 20th through the 22nd. This is the one. You can click the link in the description, or you can go to www.brianscottlive.com/Sedona-2026. I will see you there. I can't wait.